Welcome to Unlocking California Politics. Today we're joined by former Senate Majority Leader and Assembly Speaker Bob Hertzberg, who is now leading a statewide ballot initiative to address one of California's central problems, the shrinking path to home ownership for middle-income families. After years of stalled legislative attempts, Hertzberg independently advanced the Middle Class Homeownership and Family Home Construction Act, a proposed 2026 ballot measure designed to create more affordable housing for working California families. Framing it as a war for the middle class, Hertzberg describes the proposal as a market-based bridge between subsidized affordable housing and unaffordable market rate units, with the goals of helping families build wealth, stay rooted in California, and ensure the next generation has the benefits of home ownership which previous generations enjoyed. Welcome, Bob. Okay, so let's start at the beginning. What inspired you to take on the issue of middle class?
Homeownership's where the wealth is. Homeownership is the essence of shared prosperity. It's the essence of what makes America America. It's an opportunity to provide for your family, to get generational wealth. And it's just, I'm an old real estate lawyer. I've done a lot of deals over the years and stuff, but it's just fundamental in my judgment. And so, I've just always thought that was the case. And when I entered my career in public service, I want to do everything I can to try to enhance opportunities for people to own a home.
Why do you think something like this couldn't be done within the legislature and we need to go to the ballot?
Well, I served as Speaker of the Assembly. I served as Majority Leader of the Senate. And unfortunately, there's a lot of benefits to the legislature, and we have this extraordinary legislature in California, full-time legislature. But, the way to get votes, like even in Congress, well, I'll vote for you, but you have to add this in my district. You have to add this. And so what ends up happening, there's a couple of reasons. One is these things get so loaded down that you can't just do a straight up middle class approach to solve a problem. And secondly, anytime there's 50 cents on the table, there's 20 groups that want the money. And the third thing is that outside the realtors, there's just not really a political organization, quite frankly, that has the power in the legislature to fight for the middle class and to fight off all the other interest groups. It's just very hard. Look, it's compelling. Affordable housing for poor people is compelling, no question. Spending money to fix infrastructure is compelling, no question. But my purpose wasn't to be adverse to that. I'm going to support Buffy Wicks's bond. I love her to death, in terms of what she's doing. But I just think it's fundamental that we have an opportunity for middle-class folks, and deliver for them.
You kind of alluded to it in what you just said about kind of a war for the middle class. Could you talk more about that?
Yeah, I mean, when I was at one of your meetings, one of your board members suggested that these are war bonds that we're talking about. And it really is a war for the middle class that we want to. Basically, the idea of war bonds is that we have this extraordinary public purpose, and we need to all come together and invest to support the public purpose. And the thought here is that when we sell these bonds, once this passes, we want people not to ask for the highest rate of return, but to offer a 2 or 3% rate of return so they can help middle-class people reduce their cost of their mortgage and get into a home.
So let's talk about the program and how it works. So how will it help a family, for example, to get into a home, and what kind of home would they be able to buy?
Well, the first problem you have, is supply, okay? And there's just not enough supply of middle-class housing. And so this program only applies, and I stress this with every bit of stress I can give you, only applies to new homes. Fundamentally, we want to increase the supply, but secondly, we want to give hope and opportunity and optimism to families that want to get into a home. Now, what kind of home is it? Depends on the area. I talked to one big, gigantic developer, and for $600,000, they're building single-family homes in Fresno. You're not going to build a single-family home in Beverly Hills or San Francisco, but most of them will be condos, row houses, townhouses. But we define the term single-family in this initiative we have in a very broad way. I'm going to Idaho next week to look at manufactured homes, right? Could that be a possibility? We're seeing in Sweden the three-dimensional homes, 3D home builders. Who knows what the future is going to bring? The key is it's a family home where they get equity, they get an opportunity to build wealth for their family.
And how do they get into the home? Can you go into the down payment assistance?
Yeah, basically what happens is when you look at this approach, there's a couple of kind of tranches, of buckets, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
Bucket number one is 3% down. So if you're going to buy an $800,000 condominium, say in San Pedro or Fresno or Riverside, if under the current situation, you got to come with $160,000, right? Under our program, you come with $24,000. That is within reach for somebody. So you're paying your bills, you're paying for your kid, you're buying new shoes, you're paying for school. Who can come up with 160 G's?
Right.
Okay. So now you come up with the money you got 3%. You go into your bank or your credit union and you say, I want to buy one of these houses, and they will qualify you. Now, normal qualifications require a credit report. Well, credit reporting is dumber than a box of rocks. 5 years ago, I had a situation, hypothetically, where I had a problem with a credit card. Why does that hurt me today? It's like getting a grade on your report card. The test is, where are you today? Well, there's new ways. I've been talking to the federal regulators and the like of how to look at what your appropriate credit risk is. And that's called cash flow underwriting. What does that mean? Well, guess what? When you look at your credit score, it doesn't look that you've been paying your rent every single month on the first of the month. It doesn't show normally that here's my water bill or my light bill of what I pay every month. There's ways that banks can look at your credit and look at your cash flow and make a determination of A, of your credit risk, and B, whether you can afford the payment, rather than a stupid credit score that often is disconnected from reality or ties you to something historically where it's on your credit report for 7 years or 8 years. Are you kidding me? And it frustrates people. It's wrong. And so we've done that to make it easier so when you go into the bank. And then the third thing is you go into the bank to apply, you get an 80% loan from your bank, and then here's the really important part for me as well. Government bureaucracy, as well-intentioned as it is painful as hell. Who can fill out all the forms and go through all the stuff? So what we do is we give the banks a little bit of a fee, and we say, banks, you handle the paperwork for the 17% loan that we're going to get from CalHFA from this bond issue. I don't ever want the customer to ever have to talk to anybody in the government, and it makes it easy. So the bank gets a fee, and they handle the paperwork. It's like when you go buy a car and you get a $1,000 rebate from General Motors. You don't have to go to Detroit to get the money. You just sign it over at the bank, and you get $1,000 off of your deal. They handle all the paperwork. That's the idea, to have the bank handle the paperwork. So you don't have a problem with your credit score. You don't have a paperwork problem where you're frustrated with all that stuff, and make it work. And then to the extent that your paperwork's complicated to buy, I'm just buying a place for my son, the purchase and sale agreement is 48 pages, right? We have a realtor engaged that then, instead of getting some government person to give you advice, you have a realtor who's on your side, who's fighting for you against the seller, who then can make sure you're protected, make sure you understand all the stuff. So it's a simple transaction. And from an economic standpoint, we've got a realtor who's saying, we have these loans and wants to help market it. You have banks who want to market it. And so instead of a government program that's just a press release, you've got real economic activity, real marketers in a way where the interface and the customer experience is beautiful.
One thing you raised is the alternative to the FICO score or similar types of credit scoring. Historically, we always have people saying, oh, well, the banks will never go along with that. Or how have you been able to sort of
that's right. That's exactly right. Well, I wrote it into the initiative, and I did it by talking to the various experts in the field. And here's the reason. I know it sounds a little in the weeds, but we're on a podcast. So one of the things is, FICO scores, credit scores are easy. You got a number. Everybody relies on them. Looking at a credit analysis means you got to look at someone's bank statements, where they spend their money, their credit card statements, how they pay in their bills. Well, the federal law has such restrictive privacy provisions that a lot of banks don't want to, they're scared that, oh my God, if this guy eats certain kind of food or goes at certain kinds of places or whatever, you'll be profiling somebody. And so they're scared about that. So we give permission to the bank to do this in the documents so that the lending institutions aren't scared about looking at a cash flow analysis, a cash flow underwriting.
Got it. Okay. Because California law, the initiative is making it part of the law.
That part of it. And also the federal law is pretty restrictive. I talked to a lot of people. I was surprised at that, to be honest with you. Like, what's the reason? Right? And in talking to these guys at Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac and Federal Bank Board and Comptroller Currency and all these regulated blah blahs,
Right.
I realized that was a problem. So we wrote it in a way, with the advice of a lot of very smart people in the federal banking world. We have the California Bankers Association on board. They're excited about this because they make a fee. They get it. And also, the bankers, we wrote it in such a way where it's not 100% certain, but they may get Community Reinvestment Act credit, which is very important to the banks for making these loans. We wrote it in a way that was best to make that happen, to incentivize participation.
Now, the funding will be a revenue bond. Can you explain to our audience, how does a revenue bond work and how does this work?
Well, normally when people think about bonds, you think that you're putting something on the ballot and then taxpayers have to pay it back, right? That's the general assumption about a bond. And those are called GO bonds. GO stands for general obligation, meaning the full faith and credit of the taxpayer has to pay it back. So that if you borrow $1 million and it's over 10 years, you're paying $100,000 plus interest every year, and it reduces your budget available to play for childcare and stuff like that. A revenue bond is the authority of the state to issue a bond, but the people who are buying the bonds are individual investors. So if you want to buy $1,000 worth of these bonds, you buy them. If let's assume there was a default, you're suffering the risk, right? And there's no risk to the state. That's why when you read this analysis that was done by the Department of Finance and the Legislative Analyst's Office, it says no cost. It says no direct state or local costs.
I know, which is unbelievable.
It's never happened before in my knowledge. Hallelujah, baby. That makes me, I can't sleep at night listening to that.
As you mentioned earlier, you said supply. One of the reasons we have the issues we have right now is the lack of a housing supply, a lack of adequate construction. How will this program help encourage construction?
It only applies to new construction.
Right.
So it's $25 billion, which pays us, it basically results in a minimum of $150 billion of new construction. It's gigantic. Never in the history of California has there ever been anything even close. The water projects, Hoover Dam, what's in Arizona, or the high-speed rail, it was overcost. Nothing's been this big.
And there are also incentives for the builders to get involved with this program. Can you talk about those?
Yeah, one of the big challenges, builders are not, so many friends of mine who are builders, I'm not building a condo, I'm not building a house, I'm going to build rental housing and all the incentives for rental housing, which is why we have more and more renters versus homeowners, right? Well, why is that the case, Mr. Builder? Well, number one is we think labor costs are too high in terms of prevailing wage. And I'm a Democrat. I believe in prevailing wage with every bone in my body, but we need to, look, you got to make tough compromises in life, and there's no prevailing wage. So that was a big factor. The second factor is litigation. Oh my God, I'm going to build this and I'm going to get sued because there's what's called construction defect litigation, and it lasts 10 years. Oh my God, I'm going to get sued. Well, what did I do? I capped legal fees. And two, I put in a process in the in the initiative that basically allows you to right to repair. And we took notice provisions and transparency provisions that protect people and basically avoids the incentive for litigation and tries to, if there's a real problem associated with your property, we fix it, but it's not this issue where you just get bent over and spend all this money in litigation. And so the idea is, look, who wants to establish a program if no one's going to build? We had to work on both sides of the equation. On the one side, get capital over here and an opportunity for the middle class to buy. And on the other hand, over here, to be able to make sure builders were actually incentivized to build.
You mentioned two things in there, which, as you are aware, can often be controversial and would probably have made this complicated to get through the legislature, the prevailing wage, as well as the attorney's fees. Have you seen any opposition? Are you anticipating opposition? What are you looking at?
No opposition. Trial lawyers went neutral. Everybody else went neutral. I've not perceived any opposition. Nobody's come forth. Haven't got anything at all. Nobody came on comments in opposition. Nothing. Because it's like, this is the American dream, man. Like, are you kidding me? You're going to stop getting someone to get a brand new house? Crazy. So, the trial lawyers, They didn't like it initially, but the woman who I've known, she graduated Berkeley, Bolt Hall in 1976, brilliant lawyer. She goes, "This is great. My son can get a house." Like,
Right.
how cool is that?
Right. And have you been finding that in general, that whenever you talk about it, everybody sort of recognizes, like, yeah, I want my kids to stay in California. I want them to have opportunity.
Right.
Is that basically the response you're getting? Because I know
100%.
you're making a lot of touches out there on this issue. And what are you finding in terms of responses?
Keep my kid in California. I wrote an op-ed piece. I represented the San Fernando Valley, keeping your kids in California, and I get wonderful response to that. It's keeping your kids in California. It's letting people have an opportunity to get a house and build wealth, family wealth, generational wealth, and things. But yeah, keeping your kid in California is a big deal.
So our association is supporting the initiative. What other sources of support have you been getting, soliciting, or interested parties?
Well, my focus has been very strategic. Basically, the funders of this has been the realtors, California Association of Realtors, and the carpenters. So my game plan in this is to focus like crazy to get the signatures so we're at the top of the ballot, because there's going to be so many things on the ballot. I don't want ballot fatigue. I want to get out as fast as we possibly can. So I haven't spent a ton of time. Talked to some tech companies. I've talked to a bunch of developers and stuff. But to me, the game plan politically, from my experience, is what you want to do is get it qualified. Once we get it qualified, then the world changes. Right. You know what I mean? And a lot of the knuckle draggers are going to come along, and there's going to be a bunch more interest, and there'll be a bunch more interest in publicly and that kind of thing as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the aspects of this initiative that we look at, because we have to assess sometimes in terms of looking at the likelihood of success, as you mentioned, no opposition. Anybody you talk to is like, well, this is a no-brainer. We need more houses no matter what. We need to help people get into those houses. Yeah, I mean, and as you mentioned, the cost is mind-boggling to get something that says no cost.
Well, and I give you guys a great credit, because I know that it's not been your custom and practice to get involved in something like this early. Correct. Until it's qualified, and you're sticking your neck out, and that's a big deal, because I would never have done this without you. Period. End of issue. I couldn't do it. I wasn't going to spend. You got a short window to raise the money. And, there's no political constituency for this. And so the fact that, Doug McCarron from the Carpenters and you guys, Phil, Hawkins and the team, it's a really big deal. And you guys are stepping up to make it happen. I mean, I put the elbow grease in. I'm working as a volunteer, but it wouldn't happen without you, unequivocally. And I know that it's not consistent with how you normally do anything. And so it's a big deal. I really appreciate it.
Well, I think a lot of it, I mean, you've hit on a lot of the core issues for us, which is, homeownership and the problems of keeping this dream alive, which is really the middle-class dream. Dream. Unless you're earning, unless you're, I guess, Silicon Valley or Hollywood or, where you're getting money from other sources, homeownership is it. For regular middle class
your
people.
Numbers show that the basic wealth there's no new wealth at all on rentership, and the wealth going up hundreds of thousands of dollars on homeownership.
Yeah. So what would success for this be? Let's assume it passes, it goes forward, we get the signatures, it passes. Where would you? That's a brilliant question. What would you like to see?
Well, let me tell you my thinking. Because I think big, and I push hard. So my judgment is, if we got this qualified, we could go to sleep and walk away and it would pass. Okay? That is not the definition of success. My definition of success is that on a bipartisan basis, all across the state, both parties endorse this and support it. Every major candidate for all offices endorse this and support it. All the local elected officials and the like. And we win by 80%. Mm-hmm. Now, why do I want to do that? People say, oh, God, why do you want to do that? The reason I want to do that is the following. If we win by 80%, what's going to happen is all the local level communities around the state, it'll have to get 80%, you're going to win all these communities. Right. Now the local elected officials and the people in the community are excited, I want a house. And there's going to be a lot of pressure to actualize this, okay? There'll be pressure on developers to build. Oh my God, there's this opportunity. It passed really big. Politicians will look and say, oh my God, this is a great thing to campaign on and really push for this. So a lot of the barriers that we find locally, I think, will go away, because everybody's going to see, oh my God, the public really wants this. That's gigantic to make it happen.
Yeah, that makes sense.
That's point number one. Point number two, in terms of it winning by big, is I want the giving pledge people who've signed and said they're going to give away half their money. I want the tech companies, if possible. I want the foundations. I want social impact people to want to buy our bonds at 2 or 3%. Oh my God, this is a great program. Everybody supports this. Michael Dell just saw, $6 billion for kids for baby bonds to get a lot of trajectory. So they're excited about that. We want to support this. We think this is great because it's great popular, and they buy the bonds. They're not looking for a big rate of return at 7 or 8%. The idea is they buy it for 2 or 3% because they're helping the common good, as you say, war bonds. And the third thing is it goes national. If we win at 80%, you're going to see states all across the country adopt this plan. And the reason this plan is so brilliant is that it builds a ton of housing for middle-class people, and it does it without tax dollars.
Right.
And people are frustrated about writing more tax checks. You have to come up with creative, inventive solutions to solve problems. And that's what this does. Instead of okay, fine, let's hump the taxpayer over here and have them solve the problem. And they're getting pissed off. And Democrats and Republicans both. It's not about that. So we got to be smarter. And that's what this does. It's smarter, it's better, and it wouldn't happen but for you guys. So I'm telling you, you guys really stepped up. It's pretty magnanimous and pretty amazing because I come to you as a proponent. Well, what do I mean? I'm just a Buttsburger in the San Fernando Valley. What do I? I'm a nothing burger, right? I had a couple of titles, big deal, right? But I have an idea. I got skill. I know what I'm talking about. I've been working my guts out, and you guys said this is a great idea, and you jumped in against all of your traditional strategies.
So let's assume it qualifies.
Right.
What can our members do at that point? Because you'll have, obviously there'll be a campaign, but what would our members be able to do?
The thing I love about you guys is you're an army. The thing I love about you guys is you're not some group that just writes a check and at some corporate offices. Every single realtor knows every single inch of every community they represent. They know who lives where. They know what sold and what didn't sold. They know what schools are working or not working. They know what the crime rates are. They know what the fire risks are. They know their communities. And so I want to enlist them in a very big way to get out there and push this thing. I want them to push their local elected officials. I don't want a city council member, a supervisor in the state of California not to support this. And your people have relationships with every single one of them, and they could talk about it in the community. They're an unbelievably valuable army. And the thing that makes it so good about them is they understand the issue, right? I'm not like telling them to go learn about how rocket science and help us lobby rocket science. This is their issue.
Right.
So it's easy play, right? So these guys, they can be exceeding. How many members you got?
190,000 right now.
190,000 people. Yeah. Okay, 190,000 people. Yeah. My God,
I
right? If we only had 100,000 of them,
right?
I've never seen a political army that big before. And you've taken a lot of issues over the years. I worked with you on Prop 19 and helped get that through the legislature. But those are different. This one is right at the core of who these people are. Yeah. That's what's so valuable. And I think they'll be excited. And I need your help to get them excited, in addition to all the other stuff we're going to do.
Yeah. No, I think, obviously our association's supporting it, and it's something which
wouldn't happen without
it's
you.
It's core to our members is homeownership.
Right.
And I also thought you made a really good point about it can help incentivize, maybe to help move local government, remove some of the impediments to constructing homes. So that's a good point.
Right. Think about this, right? All of a sudden, when you have 80% of your people in your district say, I want this, and then this is an impediment. Are you kidding? Changes the politics.
Yeah.
Right. The President of the United States is popular because is powerful because he has votes. And all power comes from the people. If he went to 1%, the world would change. Or if somebody else came up, you know what I mean? It's all about the vote. That's why you need the votes of the people to show that this thing's real. And then your people will really be excited.
All right, Senator, any last words before we conclude today?
It's a big deal. It's a really big deal. It's the biggest deal I've ever worked on, and I've worked on big deals. And it's the right thing to do. And I've talked to so many people, and it's exactly what you say, which is every time you talk to anybody, it's, oh my God, I want my kid to get a house.
Right.
Oh my God, this is so great. It's just incredible. And I just want to win gigantic. So we have this trajectory and really make it happen. I think, we've got 335,000 signatures as of today. We need 564,000. We're actually going for 925 because you oversample because some signatures can't be read or whatever. There's a problem and stuff. I want that done early so we're at the top of the ballot. And then and then the campaign really starts. We light it up. We're going to change California,
Right.
and again use California as a messenger across the country. We get it right.
Right. All right. Thank you so much, Senator.
Thank you.
Disclaimer. The purpose of this podcast, brought to you by the California Association of Realtors, C.A.R., is to provide general and educational information and opinions from a wide range of perspectives regarding politics, voting, elections, legislative issues, and more. The opinions, beliefs, and views expressed by guests or participants of this podcast are solely their own and do not necessarily reflect the opinions, beliefs, or views of C.A.R., its affiliates, their respective directors, officers, or employees. Reference to any individual or entity does not constitute an endorsement, recommendation, or any other position or opinion regarding that entity or individual by C.A.R. This podcast does not constitute professional advice or services of any kind. This podcast is available for private, non-commercial use only. You may not edit, modify, or redistribute this podcast.